Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first student showcase for the Sharing Stories from 1977 project. My name is Caitlin Jones, and I worked for 4 years as the lead research assistant for the Sharing Stories project. And tonight we are joined by an audience of past and present Sharing Stories collaborators, scholars, and National Women's Conference participants. And we have the privilege of hearing from an incredible cohort of researchers who have dedicated their time and talent to highlighting this important moment in history. I'd like to start with a quick overview of the National Women's Conference and the Sharing Stories project. So the National Women's Conference was held in Houston, Texas in November 1977, and it was the first and only federally funded conference dedicated to women's issues. 2,000 elected delegates from every state and territory came to Houston to debate healthcare, employment, the arts, education, legal issues, the Equal Rights Amendment, and civil rights for queer women and women of color. They submitted a national plan of action to President Jimmy Carter and effectively set the stage for federal policy on women's issues for the coming decades. Now, the Sharing Stories project came out of a 40th anniversary conference in 2017 at the University of Houston, where many participants and organizers came together to reflect on their work, but also wonder how the conference became, in Gloria Steinem's words, the most important event nobody knows about. History professors Nancy Beck-Young and Leandra Zarnow started Sharing Stories as a response to this, to bring this conference out of the margins and into the center of American political history and women's history. And one major goal of the project is to highlight the stories of the thousands of women who participated at the Women's Conference. And by the 50th anniversary of the conference in 2027, we aim to publish biographies of all 2,000 delegates, alongside information about organizers, volunteers, speakers, and international attendees. To accomplish this monumental task, we have adopted a crowdsourcing method that goes beyond UH. As you can see from this map featuring markers of our partner institutions dotted throughout the United States, we have created an expansive network with a wide geographical scope. And to date, more than 2,000 students have worked on Sharing Stories. And out of this number, roughly 600 are students outside of the UH campus. Tonight, you'll hear from these students directly as they talk about their research and experience with Sharing Stories. Some of the students will present live. Other students who could not join us tonight have submitted video recordings. At the end of the program, we will have a few minutes for a Q&A with the audience. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen at any point during the presentations. Now let's hear from our students. First, we have a video presentation by Megan Taylor from Merrimack College, Miranda Rosinski from the University of Houston, and Julia Nemec from Illinois State University. So let's get started.
Hi, I'm Megan Taylor. I'm a sophomore from Merrimack College studying social work, and I am just so grateful to have been a part of working on the Sharing Stories project. I just really loved working on it and learning more about my delegate, Susan Gladstone. So Susan Gladstone was an alternate delegate from Auburn, New Hampshire. She, as you can see, I have some newspaper clippings. She won a lot of awards for her editorials in her junior high and high school newspapers. And she also did, right after she graduated in high school, go down to Mississippi to work on Freedom Summer. So there she worked on voter registration as well as nonviolent strategy tactics and was a literacy school teacher. She did stay there a little bit longer than Freedom Summer actually was because she wanted to continue her work. But afterwards, when she came back home to New England, she ended up getting her bachelor's degree and master's degree in education. So she was an elementary school teacher, but along with being a teacher, she was one of the founders of the Every Woman Center in Manchester at the YWCA. She worked with the New Hampshire Coalition of Battered Women, was the founder of the New Hampshire Positive Action, which was an advocacy group for HIV positive individuals. And she did so many other incredible things and founded them for women as well as other marginalized groups, which just shows how much of an activist she was. Um, Sadly, in 1986, she got a blood transfusion that was HIV positive blood. So in 1992, she did pass away from AIDS complications, which I just think was so tragic because of the amazing woman she was. Like, she's very inspiring to me just because of all the things that she did in her life and her short life. And I think she's incredible and more people should know about her story. Um, but I really loved this project and learning about her. I wish I could talk to her and that she was alive today because of all the amazing things that she did. Um, so thank you so much for letting me tell you a little bit about Susan Gladstone. And I just want to say thank you so.
Hello, my name is Miranda Rosinski. I am currently a first year graduate student at the University of Houston. I am working towards getting my master's in public history. I worked on the Sharing Stories from 1977 project as both a junior and a senior during my undergraduate years, in which I was a double major in Spanish and history. I started as an intern in the summer of 2022 and researched 5 delegates from Colorado. From my research, I wrote 5 biographies and did a few oral history interviews. In my last semester as a senior in the fall of 2023, I worked as an intern for class credit. My work was overseen by Dr. Nancy Beck Young, and I did data cleaning for information on the delegates from Puerto Rico. To give you a little insight into the research I was able to do, I will tell you about 2 delegates I researched from Colorado. The first is Mary Hoagland, who was born in 1924 in Georgia. She was a lawyer who focused on women's cases concerning discrimination, abuse, divorce, and custody battles. She was active in many organizations like the National Organization for Women and League of Women Voters. She was chosen as a delegate due to her reputation as a civil justice activist and feminist in Colorado. She continued her activism after 1977 and died at the age of 96 in 2020. Linda Fowler was born in 1945 in Connecticut. She was a key player in the national lesbian feminist movement. She was nominated as an alternate and attended the conference as a representative of the LGBTQ community. She advocated for lesbian recognition in the feminist movement, abortion, the Equal Rights Amendment, and the Sexual Preference Resolution. She continued her activism into the 2000s and is currently retired and lives in North Carolina. I was able to conduct an oral history interview with Linda over the phone, which enriched my knowledge of her experience as a lesbian feminist activist and conference attendee. I also got my first taste of doing public history. I also had the pleasure of researching delegates from Puerto Rico, and through my investigation, I came to understand their prominent role in promoting civil rights and gender equality on the island. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julia Nemick, and I'm a junior history social science secondary education major at Illinois State University. One of the delegates that I learned about through the Sharing Stories project was Matilda Jakubowski, most commonly known as Tilly Jakubowski. While researching Mrs. Jakubowski, I found many personal connections to her. My parents are immigrants from Poland, and as a fluent speaking Polish American, this was very inspirational to me. Tilly was a Polish American Slav Catholic woman making about a medium income in the Lower West Side of Chicago. She was highly involved in the Polish American Congress, an association that I am in, as well as the St. Adalbert's School Board and the Chicago Transit Authority. Mrs. Jakubowski did not have a political background, but she made her way onto the CTA board to be a voice for her people. Her goals were to make her community feel happy, safe, and supported. She also stayed very true to her faith. Being a Catholic woman, she preserved the Church of St. Adalbert's, a 100-year-old church in Chicago, keeping her religion and community members together. It is truly an inspiration seeing someone that has very similar roots to me and to my family making such a difference in Chicago, my home. Being a part of a community makes you feel important and like you are part of something bigger. The Polish community is prideful and works hard to preserve our Polish culture, especially in Chicago. I am proud to be Polish and to share the success of people like me. It is exciting, and it was an honor to get to know Matilda a little bit more and to share her story.
Thank you so much, everyone. Now we're going to hear from some presenters that are here with us today, and they're going to present live. So first, we have Rachel Dietz, Haley Short, and Leela Bannon. So first, we will hear from Rachel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Dietz, and I am a senior student at Idaho State University. My major is psychology with a minor in gender and sexuality studies. I would like to start off stating how much this project has meant to me, and I appreciate the teachings from Dr. Stengo and her assistants throughout the whole process. My delegate is Miss Emily Boone from Kentucky. When I had first started this project, it was rather difficult for me to find information on her, as I was looking at years prior to her involvement in the national conference. But after dropping the middle initial and looking at years after the conference, this what seemed to be like a big ball, tangled ball of information soon unraveled before me, and I had learned about Miss Boone's courageous and bold advocacy as she exhibited through attending meetings in the middle of winter and also traveling 7.25 miles one way to help a client in her social working career. After trying to find more information about her, I was met with a regular Google search of her practice, an address, and a phone number of her. And so I was able to conduct my oral history of Miss Boone's life. And unknowingly, she became a role model for me. Similar to Emily Boone's points of advocacy, which focused on environmentalism, women's rights, and prosperity for all, I had already participated in a 2017 women's protest in Driggs, Idaho, and I've also recently been making efforts in unionizing my workplace to allow positive change for both my coworkers and for me. I'm proud to say that Emily Boone has become an inspiring example for me as I use my degree to pursue a career in clinical therapy. And I feel I have learned a valuable lesson that advocacy can create change and can unite people from all walks of life. And this, given my own interest in psychology and social work, this project has also given me many lessons about the interactions of the micro, meso, and macro levels of a person's environment and their experiences that turn into history, and how each level can associate with one or all parts. And for me, I feel very grateful to be a part of the Women in U.S. History course taught by Dr. Stengo, as this helped me gain a new appreciation for history.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Now we are going to hear from Haley Short from DePauw University.
Hello, my name is Haley Short. I graduated from DePauw University in May of 2023, so this last year, with a Bachelor's of Musical Arts. I contributed to the Sharing Stories project with help from Dr. Sarah Rowley, who was my professor of Women's Studies, and my partner and peer, Ava Renard. She helped me a lot with this project and with studying our delegate, Sita Romelia Keith Miller. She was born in 1938 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then she later moved to Anderson, Indiana after choosing to attend what is now called Anderson University, where she graduated with a degree in English and education and joined numerous organizations around campus and the community. After attending college, Sita became a wife and a mother while continuing to be very active with the Church of God, very active with her writing to newspapers and other publications, and in some political affairs. For example, she served as the president of the Madison County Women's Political Caucus and many other community service areas. At the National Women's Conference specifically, she served as the only self-identified feminist delegate from Indiana, and she barely got on it. She secured the last spot of, I think it was a group of 33 delegates that get sent from each state, and she secured the last one. She also served on the International Women's Year Planning Committee. She was a part of that for Indiana. And CETA passed in 1994, but she will be remembered as a fierce advocate for women's rights and progressive change. You can go ahead and move on. So one of the biggest takeaways from me is that she was from my hometown. I am also from Anderson, Indiana. I'm right here right now. I am like 10 minutes away from where she lived. It was very cool to learn about someone that impacted my community in these in-depth ways. So as you can see, I learned very in-depth research skills. I discovered information through very unusual sources, such as calling a school corporation or going on very deep dive internet searches. I developed interview skills by interviewing with the school corporation and her daughter, and I established connections with like the others on this Zoom call right now that are passionate about the less acknowledged parts of history. I think the big impact was that we can focus on women who otherwise wouldn't have been recognized in a historical perspective because that just wasn't prioritized then for women. Um, we can also provide family with new information about their relatives. And I think we were actually able to tell Sita's daughter about a lot of information from the conference and other things about her political activity that she didn't previously know. Um, and then her biography will eventually be posted on her website, and I will continue being able to make connections with these powerful, active women, like are in this Zoom call today. So yeah, that's all I have, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Haley. Next up, we have Leela Bannon from Smith College.
Hello, my name is Leela Bannon. I'm a first year at Smith College, studying environmental science and policy. Um, I participated in the Sharing Stories project in a women's history class in my previous semester. And me and my classmates were primarily researching delegates from New Hampshire and Massachusetts with the help of Dr. Kelly Anderson, our professor. So I researched Ellen Hanley, who was a delegate from Nashua, New Hampshire. Her birth year and as well as her death year were unable to be verified. However, she self-identified to be in the 26 to 55 age group at the time of the conference. Next slide, please. She was a homemaker, but she participated in leadership in her community. She was the president of the Nashua chapter of NOW, as well as a director on the board of her local YWCA. And she also had a leadership position on the Rape and Assault Response Committee for the Nashua area. And I think her work in her local community to further women's rights prepared her well to represent Nashua and New Hampshire at the National Women's Conference. Some context on her political affiliations. She was in support of the Equal Rights Amendment. She was quoted in a local newspaper saying that she believed that the conference would be addressing the grievances of all women. And I think the article was a debate between Ellen Hanley and Rebecca Kerouac, who was the president of the New Hampshire Right to Life organization, which was an anti-abortion group. And the article, I think, shows the political diversity of New Hampshire at the time. But regardless of this, Ellen Hanley really just wanted to help as many women in her community as possible, regardless of political affiliation. She wanted to do this through housewife rights, which was what her main concern was in her work at the conference. And Ellen Hanley and the supporters of the housewife rights at the conference wanted to solidify homemakers' rights to ensure equal rights and protection under the law through legal and financial independence for women. yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for this opportunity to speak here, and also to research and hear about these delegates at this conference. My um, grandmother's partner, many of her friends went to the conference, and so it was a great. I've heard about the conference before, and so it was really special to be able to research and get to know one candidate a lot better.
Thank you so much, Leela. Next, we have another video. You will hear from Ariana Luna from Colby College, Indigo Mudbari from Brown University, and Samantha Pyle from Sacred Heart Preparatory.
Hello, my name is Ariana Luna, and I'm currently a freshman at Colby College in Waterville, Maine. I was introduced to the National Women's Conference and the Sharing Stories from 1977 project as a part of my Introduction to Women, Gender, and Sexualities course this past fall. As a part of our final, I was assigned to piece together the life of Vivian F. Massey, the only Native American delegate for the state of Maine. When I was initially given the task, I was incredibly hopeful that there would be so much discussed and published surrounding my delegate, due to the large Native American community and population that can be found in Maine. And it is even acknowledged by Colby College. It was incredibly disappointing to see how little there was about her publicly once I did start my research, which I did find very, very, very surprising, considering she was the first Native American woman to ever be elected into Maine state legislature. This was something I felt would and should be more recognized, but everything I found during my initial searches just made it seem like another honorable mention. I hit many roadblocks in my research process because there were very few public records for Native American communities, something I had no idea I would have so much difficulty looking into. If it weren't for the Wabanaki Alliance website, I would not have been able to share Vivian Massey's story. Their site was created to educate and help the people of Maine about the need for securing sovereignty in the tribes of Maine. It was here that I found lots of interesting information, not only about her time in state legislature, but surrounding her family and community as well. Overall, I really enjoyed and appreciated the research that came out of this project. I feel as though I have a better understanding of the Penobscot community and its values. It was something I was not expecting to gain from this experience at all. The research I conducted from this assignment sparked my interest in learning more about Native American and Indigenous communities, and even encouraged me to take a course this spring about Indigenous storytellers. And I hope to foster similar research in the future about Indigenous communities during the rest of my time at Colby.
Hello, my name is Indigo Mudbari, and I currently attend Brown University, and I intend to major in ethnic studies and history. As a student researcher for Sharing Stories from 1977, I got the incredible opportunity to research and interview Barbara Colt, a former Rhode Island delegate to the National Women's Conference. Miss Colt was exposed to politics from a young age, as her father was very active in local politics. As she told me, it didn't occur to me not to do something in politics. Our interview was very impactful for me, as I learned about her vast activist and political career, from serving as a Warwick City Council member to co-establishing the Rhode Island chapter of the National Women's Political Caucus to her current work with the Rhode Island Women Project. Her determination and staunch commitment to advancing women's rights deeply affected me. In her own words, she said that, "I didn't have any trouble speaking out or letting people know what I thought." I think that message of hers, to remain assertive in the face of any obstacles, is something we should all carry with us, and I'm so grateful that Miss Colt's story is being shared through this project and that I got to be a part of the process. Through this project, I was able to begin learning how to conduct archival research, write meaningful biographies of people's lives, and conduct an oral history interview, skills that will be of the utmost importance to me as someone pursuing history. Most of all, I got to have an amazing conversation with an inspirational person.
Hi, my name is Samantha, and I'm a junior in high school at Sacred Heart Preparatory in Atherton, California. I've always been passionate about math and science, but in the past few years, I found a love and appreciation for learning about and finding ways to share the amazing stories in women's history. I took AP US History last year, and I learned more or less everything required for the AP exam. But somehow, at the end of the year, I couldn't even name 3 women I learned about. And worse, it felt normal. I guess I just assumed that they were not relevant in history and had not done incredible things. It did not take me long, with a little bit of research, to realize how wrong I was. This sparked a goal for me to fill in the gaps both in my own knowledge, as well as to reform aspects of education to make sure that girls know from a young age that women have always been in history. They have shaped our society as it is today, and that they have the power to change it. It has been wonderful to get to do research to further the knowledge of more people, not just for a grade, a test, or to prove my writing abilities to someone. What I've found most interesting about this process as a whole is both how many incredible things these women have done that are not being showcased, and at the same time, how similar they are to us. Getting to do in-depth research about all parts of the delegates' lives has been fascinating. For example, in the first biography I wrote, I got to learn how Lewis Crystal organized conversations about the Equal Rights Amendment, how she was the first woman in one of her job positions, but also that she was in Fiddler on the Roof and was a freshman basketball champion. And believe it or not, my basketball team was a league champion when I was about her age. These people are not just historical figures. They were women with lives, unique wants and needs, hobbies, and families. I believe it's so important to honor all parts of these individuals. When I heard about the opportunity to participate again this semester, I knew I had to do it. In my research, I've seen how many incredible things women have done that are neglected just due to the sheer magnitude of events, not enough researchers, or not sufficient funding or publicity to get their stories told. I want to create resources for other people to learn about some of the women who have shaped our society today. And I hope to both inspire people of all ages and genders to learn about women's history and remind young women that they deserve a place in anywhere decisions are made. Their voices are worthy, and they are not alone in the fight for equality. Happy Women's History Month, and thank you so much for your time.
All right, now we have 3 presenters who will present live. And we have, first up, we have Lucia Villasante Mata, we have Emily Anderson, and we have Emily Schmidt. So let's hear from Lucia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucia Villasante Mata, and I'm currently a student in Union College of Union County, New Jersey. And me, along some other classmates, and with a lot of help of my professor, Michelle Rotunda, we researched Clara Allen. This woman was very inspiring for me, was an activist, and she was born in 1917 in Jersey City, which is very close where I'm living right now, so it's very exciting for me. She worked as a telephone operator for AT&T, where for the first time she joined a union, and that's one of the first things that I found where she started being an activist. She served as a vice president in the Women's Affirmative Action Committee of New Jersey State, and she was the treasurer of the International Women's Year Conference in Princeton. Next slide, please. One of the fun stories and fun fact that I found about Clara Allen was that she wore a 59-cent pin, referring to the amount of wages earned by a woman for every dollar paid by a man. This was, as you can see on the picture, this was more than a statement. She will just wear it for them to see and advocate for women. I will read out loud the quote that you can see on the presentation because I believe it's very inspired. She said, those women have to get wise and demand to be paid more so the union isn't just taking care of the boys. We know that squeaky wheel gets the oil. This woman, besides being funny, she was smart and activist. And working on this project was very, very challenging for me. But at the same time was a lot of fun and made me discover things about me that I had no idea, skills I had no idea I had. So yeah, she another thing that really inspired me was that she was activist, as I said before, but especially after she got married. That back on that time, it was surprising for some women. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to assist this meeting.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Next up, we have Emily Anderson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Anderson, and I joined this project with Professor Judy Wu at UC Irvine back when I was an undergraduate in 2021. If you'd like to go to the next slide. So like many of the people here, I wrote a few biographies on individual delegates, but my research primarily focused on the California State Meeting and the California State Meeting Report. So all of these women were elected as delegates at state meetings. Each state had one, and that's where people came together and voted on the people and resolutions that they wanted to represent their local interests on the national stage. So the California State Meeting was hosted at the University of Southern California from June 17th to 19th in 1977. And although organizers planned for around 2,000 people to show up, 5,000 people attended, and out of 1,300 applicants, 96 delegates were selected, plus 5 alternates. And then 44 resolutions were passed, and only 2 were defeated, and those were sponsored by the conservative movement. So all of this information is found in this massive document called the State Meeting Report. And it's over 110 pages, and it documents the entire meeting process from inception and planning to the meeting itself, to the public response and aftermath. And in order to organize all this information, I created an index so that my team could find this document, which is complicated and very detailed, actually useful in their research process. So I indexed by keywords, themes, issues, and delegates. And if we could go to the next slide. I was really hoping that the index and the organized information would reveal some broader patterns happening outside of individual delegates. So I wanted to see who took leadership roles, who was involved in the coordinating committee, the nominating committee, who led workshops and presentations, who was really mobilizing in their community to get other people involved. And then how did delegate expertise influence their activism? So there were a lot of intersecting identities going on. Black women, Latina women, queer women, and disabled women. And all of their lived experiences really impacted the ways that they got involved, as well as their vocation. They worked in Hollywood or on farms, or they stayed at home. And these also impacted the ways that they got involved. The main way is through protest. During the meeting's planning, Black women felt underrepresented, so they made their voices heard. And at the meeting itself, disabled women realized that there were no accommodations made for them, so they protested there. So within this index and this massive document, I wanted to contextualize this within some broader political trends. How did communities respond to the idea of a meeting? What was the public's perspective on the meeting itself? And to provide historical evidence of the delegates' specific activism at the time. For many of these delegates, this is the only historical document showing what they were doing in 1977 and how they were involved in the conference itself. So as you can dive in and really understand from these massive amounts of information, the ways that specific delegates use their specific stories and personal experiences to really contribute to a broader, much broader political conversation that was happening at the time. So there's a lot more on that, but thank you so much. And I will pass it on to the next presenter.
Thank you so much, Emily. And next up, we have Emily Schmidt from Rowan University.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Schmidt. I am a student representative from Rowan University. I initially got introduced to this project by my professor, Dr. Jessica Mack, who introduced this project to our digital history class. Thank you. Can you move to the next slide as well? So I wanted to talk about the research process for my delegates. So I worked on Catherine DiBenedetto and Valerie Caffey, who were both delegates from New Jersey. Unfortunately, the research process wasn't necessarily easy for us as we were trying to find as much information as we could on these women. But the amazing part was that they had such a profound impact in their communities that they were represented in newspapers. We found out a lot about Caffey and DiBenedetto because they were so active in protecting and expanding the rights of the people in their communities. Catherine DiBenedetto worked with people in her community of Cherry Hill, which is about half an hour from Rowan. And Valerie Caffey was involved in what I'll talk about later, which is the Anti-Apartheid Mobilization Coalition in New Brunswick, when she protested and led a protest for an art show that was hosted by Johnson & Johnson, who was also funding some apartheid groups in Africa. What I loved about the fact that they used these newspapers, that we were able to use these newspapers, is because their impact was being felt at the time and is still is today. One of the best opportunities that me and my team had was going to the university archives. Catherine DiBenedetto got her BA in social work here at Rowan, and we were able to go and see if we can find anything about her experience here. Well, we didn't actually find anything that supported the information that we had on DiBenedetto. We did actually find information on Dolores Harris. So one of the other groups in my digital history class was then able to contribute to their information on Harris, and it kind of helped us as a like classroom-wide community to be able to help each other find out more about these amazing women. Next slide, please. So their legacy. So I included a moment about Joan Sampieri, who is an absolutely amazing woman who was in a male-dominated field. I included her because I know one of the other groups worked very hard. But our main takeaway is that we not only learned about the importance of the conference, but we were able to share these stories. Since this is a public history project, being on an online database, everyone has access. Especially being from New Jersey, learning about our own history, we can now continue the amazing work that Caffey DiBenedetto and the other New Jersey delegates started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. And now we are going to move to the third and final video of the night. So we are going to hear from Tanner Thornton from the University of Alabama at Birmingham, Miranda Trotman from Ramapo College of New Jersey, and then Fiona O'Byrne from St. Mary's College, and Joanna Canales from the University of Houston.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanner Thornton. I'm a junior at UAB, which is the University of Alabama at Birmingham. I am a major in political science and history, and a little fun fact about myself is this semester I am a congressional intern for Congresswoman Terry Sewell in Alabama's 7th Congressional District. I did my research on Consuelo Connie Harper, who founded the Central Alabama OIC in 1968. She was an Alabama State University alumna, and she dedicated her life to improving economic conditions through her organization for rural communities in the Black Belt and the Montgomery area, especially for Black women and mothers. And this is her pictured with Dr. Percy Vaughn, who is the founding dean of the Business Administration College at ASU. And she was actually an alternate delegate from the state of Alabama to the National Women's Conference, so she wasn't a full delegate. But her career outside of her time at the National Women's Conference in 1977 is her more impactful work. This is her pictured on the left with a young woman named Rachel McGee working on curriculum for single mothers to achieve self-sufficiency in their economically underserved area. And then Connie Harper had a really big impact on her community to lifting up people in her rural area that needed economic help and economic opportunities, especially at a time of large discrimination against African Americans. And as an intern for Representative Sewell's office, I was actually able to create a list of influential Black Alabamians to highlight for Black History Month, and Connie Harper was one of the ones that we got posted on our page. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Miranda Troutman, and for my Sharing Stories contribution, I researched and wrote about Theodosia Tamberlane, and my delegate Theo was a dedicated feminist for essentially her entire life. She attended Catholic school as a child and was inspired by the nuns who taught her, and they inspired her to make a difference in the lives of women in her community. While she was a wife and mother, Theo also really rejected the societal gender norms of the time, and she got a full scholarship to a 2-year college. And then she later went on to attend Drew University on another full scholarship, and even later received her master's degree from Fairleigh Dickinson on yet another full scholarship. And she later got her JD degree from Seton Hall. So Theo's academic achievements really stood out to me because even for today, getting 3 full scholarships and a master's degree is very impressive, and even more so in the 1970s, especially as a woman. Thea was also involved in many of her local groups, such as her local branch of the League of Women Voters, the State Women's Issues Committee, the Women's Political Caucus of Morris County, the Morristown National Organization for Women, and many other groups. She was very involved in her community. And after the conference, she continued her work for women's rights, and she worked on the presidential campaign for Ted Kennedy, who was running against Jimmy Carter for the Democratic nomination, since she didn't feel that Carter's policies were right for women. And overall, Theo placed a great importance on education, helping her community, especially women in her community, and being involved in women's rights organizations. Today, Theo is an artist, a painter who is living in Florida, and she even went back to school again to get her Associates of Fine Arts degree, and she continues to contribute to community too by donating some of her art to nonprofits. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Hi, my name is Fiona O'Byrne, and I'm currently a junior at St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana. I'm a double major in history and philosophy on the intended law school track. At the time of my first contribution to the Sharing Stories project, I was a sophomore at St. Mary's. I'm now currently beginning my second contribution to the Sharing Stories project. My first contribution to the Sharing Stories project was with a partner. We focused on researching the life of Carol DeVoe, now Carol Sublett. Carol was only 20 years old when she was chosen as the pro-America delegate for Indiana to the National Women's Conference in 1977. Carol's platform was based on pro-life beliefs, anti-ERA, pro-God, anti-daycare centers, and anti-gay rights. Carol was a very prolific writer in her local newspaper of the South Bend Tribune. She went on to graduate from Butler University and St. Vincent Hospital School of Medical Technology. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in science and chemistry, after which she began working as part of the educational staff in chemistry at Indiana University and Indiana University Health Methodist Hospital CLS program. During the process of researching Carol, I was reminded that not everyone in participation at the conference was in support of women's rights. My partner and I attempted to interview Carol, but unfortunately she declined. This project reminded me of why I find history fascinating. It also reminded me that whether or not I agree with someone's views, it is still important to tell and research their stories. The process of research and interaction with Carol taught me what it takes to be a professional historian, and also how to locate information about people whose information and backstory are not widely known, and whose place in history might not have seemed significant at the time. I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and especially the important opportunity that you've given me to allow me to speak at this conference and to participate in this project.
Hi, my name is Joanna Canales. I was a Sharing Stories volunteer from summer 2022 to spring 2023. During my time, I conducted research over the women who attended the conference. I wrote biographies over them. I did a little bit of data cleaning, and I conducted an oral history interview with Linda Burche, who was a spectator who attended the conference on one of the days. And what stood out to me about that interview was that Linda was a college student at the time who spontaneously attended the conference, and who they said they actually couldn't hear what was happening. They were so far away, and the microphones or the sound system was not good enough. But what they remember was just the energy in the room, like being surrounded by all these cheering, passionate women. And for me as a volunteer writing about the delegates who were a part of this conference, they are passionate women, from my experience, wonderful, all involved with different organizations before the event and even after. One of my standout, I mean, I love all the women I wrote about, but one of my standout biographies was over Agnes Helgenberger, who was a delegate for the US territory Micronesia at the time. And just a lovely person, but also the fact that they're still doing this work to this day, which is mind blowing. But yeah, this was an amazing project to be a part of, and yes, thank you for sharing stories, for allowing me to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's been such a joy hearing from all of these students and hearing about all of the different people that they've had the opportunity to learn about. Just a reminder, if you're with us through the webinar, feel free to drop any questions that you have for our researchers in the Q&A, and we will make sure to get to your question. One thing that I was noticing that I'd like to pose for our researchers as you were talking is that you all learned about people and researched people who were so different from each other. And I think that's one of the great things about researching this particular conference. And so my question for you all is, how did this experience with sharing stories and learning about these women impact the way you thought about, feminism or even activism in general in the 1970s? Did it change the way that you viewed it? How did your thinking about that time period change? Leela, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I am privileged enough to have I guess like come from generations of politically active women in my family. As I mentioned before, my grandmother had a couple friends at the convention. And so I think I had kind of going into my education here at Smith, a little bit of background knowledge about the political involvement in the 70s. But I think this project helped me realize how much of a grassroots movement this was, which I hadn't really understood previously, I think. And I think just realizing that it really was a lot of ordinary women, like a homemaker from Nashua, New Hampshire. And I think that that's what also makes this organization so wonderful, is giving those women who seemed so ordinary the recognition that they wanted or deserved, I guess, not wanted.
Rachel, go ahead. See, you have your hand raised.
I to follow up with what Leila had said, yeah, it does revolutionize this idea that anyone can, be a part of history, whether it's by small acts of advocacy or even large acts of attending a national women's conference like that. It's very inspiring, especially when, take for example, you grow up in Idaho. It's a very small town, so when there is an opportunity to be a part of a big uh, association like that, it's kind of insane not to be a part of it.
Would anybody else like to jump in on that question? How it changed your thinking about, women's activism in the 1970s? Miranda.
I'm from Houston. I've lived here my entire life. I go to college here. I didn't know this happened in my city. And that kind of blew my mind in the first place, that I did not know Houston even had a history of national activism. I think our city is pretty underrated, and the fact that such an incredible project is being done at U of H and it's networking with so many other institutions to document this history, I love that connection between the future and the past. And I think about how I grew up with just since I was born, I have felt free as a woman to have a credit card, to have any sexuality that I want, to marry who I want, that kind of thing. And to know that I feel like um, when I did this research, I realized who fought for those rights. And it made me appreciate the freedoms that I was taking for granted that I was used to.
Fiona?
I guess I had a bit of a different experience, just because Carol was a very conservative woman from her time. So I guess growing up and entering my majors and such, I always just kind of expected and assumed that people, specifically women, had to have like wanted to get rights and like enter this certain level of freedom and free will and choices. So like researching Carol very much just showed me that people weren't always on board with that, even if they were invited to this conference, and even if they were women who were very much enjoying privileges of getting an education, especially in STEM, previously and still today male dominated. So I guess my experience was a bit different than others in that regard.
Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And I think that what has been both funny and also kind of sad is seeing the same patterns and the same dialogues really being recycled today in today's political landscape as we continue to ask for certain rights that still haven't come. Sometimes I'm talking to my friends about politics and I'm like, wait, is that right now or is that from 1977? Like, I'm no sorry. Like, is the Save Our Children campaign from yesterday or 50 years ago? And but I do think it's really powerful to see how ordinary people have been able to come together and really have actual productive dialogue. And it gives me a little bit of hope for our current moment that when we're in a similar political context, we might be able to accomplish gain some actual ground, like how these women did back in 1977. And I think it's really cool to look at it.
Thank you so much, everybody. Another question that I had, unless anybody else had any questions, was I know that some of you talked about it in your presentations, but I was curious about how this experience impacted your own careers going forward. I'm not sure if you're not all history majors, you're off in your different studies, which is great. But I'm curious about the skills that you gained in this project that could be applicable to your future careers, or even some ideas that you've gained. Go ahead, Haley.
Yeah, I feel like I can talk on this because I actually studied music, as I said earlier, in college, and I didn't have very many classes that were much outside of that. I did a few communications-based classes, but not necessarily in history, until second semester senior year, and I took the women's studies, women's history, in the US, and that's where we did this project. And I learned a lot throughout the whole progression of that class, but most specifically with that project, the in-depth research. Like I've never done anything like that. I kind of just struggled my way through research projects, it felt like, in college until then, until I was like, oh, so it kind of forced me to actually learn research skills, because usually with a lot of this, like, topics I've studied, you can find decent information about them, but about, just a random person that was an ordinary person, it just like really changed things. So I think I think that's the biggest takeaway for me personally.
Go ahead, Lucy.
I have to agree with Haley because I feel like I realized a lot of skills that, as I mentioned in my presentation, I didn't have an idea I had them. And right now I started studying liberal arts associate degree, to kind of find my way and find what I wanted. And thanks to this class, which I was taking last semester, and thanks to this project, made me realize how much passionate I was for these kind of subjects, and kind of like to give life to for a long time has been unknown. I find it fascinated, and I think it's great that now there's like people talking about it more widely and stuff like this, like for women, and it's not as conservative as it was women's movement back then. But yeah, it was great. It definitely made me forge my interest. Now I want to pursue political science or something related to that, because it really inspires me.
That's great. Go ahead, Tanner.
Yeah, so I feel like this project has really given me a lot of valuable skills going forward. I'm a double major in political science and history, so I've been kind of like through my first 2 years of undergrad, like figuring out which direction I want to go. And this project really, I feel like, pushed me a lot more towards the history side. I've always wanted to go to grad school, but my goal as of right now is to apply to a PhD program in history. And so I feel like this was really important. And I feel like being part of the group from Alabama is also interesting because we have a lot of our delegates kind of intertwined with the civil rights history as well, which I'm really interested in. And it's kind of the direction I think I'm going with a possible like dissertation thesis for grad school. So my delegate that I researched specifically was not at least not known to be heavily involved in the civil rights movement, but just kind of seeing the different people we had in our class when we researched it, and then getting the chance to work with the Congresswoman's office right now, and her advocacy for the re-expanding the Voting Rights Act has kind of, all these things have been happening like at the same time for me, so it's kind of informed the direction I want to go after undergrad.
Thank you all so much. I did want to acknowledge that there are some NWC participants with us in the room today. So I was curious if anybody really quickly, as we wrap up here, wanted to share their experience in Houston, or talk about their experience tonight learning about different people who were there with you in Houston. Go ahead, Miss Lena. I think you might be muted. 1 second.
Mute. Did I unmute myself?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm a Texan living in Minnesota, but I want to thank all of these young people for doing all this research and telling exactly what it meant to you, even to the point of whether the research was difficult, how you handled that, and seeing these women as many said, ordinary women doing these things 50 years ago. And for me, it was an opportunity because there was a 9-to-5 organization for working women to get pay equity. And I started an organization in Houston, and I don't think there was anyone in the South that did such things. But it was a lifetime experience, which is brought me here this evening just to hear all these wonderful young people, and I'm just so proud of you. I just want to cry. It just feels good that it's circling around, and that we will work all together at all ages, work together as women. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brooks, for sharing with us, and thank you for being here with us. We're really happy that so many of you came out to hear what we've been working on, and for also being just continuing to support this project. But we all have gone a little bit past the hour, so we're going to wrap up here. Just as a quick, thank you to everyone. I did want to mention that Sharing Stories from 1977 is a flagship project of the Center for Public History at the University of Houston. And so for more information about the center, there should be a slide, and you can scan the QR code on the slide. And then you should also check out the Sharing Stories website. We're always adding new content to that. So you can use the QR code here on the slide, or you can go to www.sharingstories1977.uh.edu. You can also connect with us on social media using the handles below on the screen. We also wanted to thank our wonderful project manager, Dr. Sandra Davidson, for putting all this together tonight, and to Iggy Harrison and his team at Streaming Media for helping us run this technology tonight. This would not have been possible without all of you coming together to help with this. And so thank you, students, again, for sharing your research. Thank you to the educators out there who are helping us and encouraging us to go pursue this type of research. And thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us tonight. I had such a great time learning about everything, and have a great night, everyone.